Hey, you've summoned a lesser maker. I just got this City of Sigmar box, and it looks really cool. Let's convert it to be a Lethis Shyish city guard. My biggest gripe with this box is that the coolest City of Sigmar models aren't in it. There's an ogre guy that has a crow's nest on his back, and then the gunners, and then there's a wizard that's being carried by two soldiers. This model isn't in here too. Instead of waiting for those models to come out, I just figured I'd scratch build them.
This city is coming from Syish. Syish is basically the underworld in Age of Sigmar. Mortals can live there, which I think is pretty interesting. I was coming up with a D&D character idea where the undead live alongside mortal people. So this idea kind of parallels that. The idea is your conscription into the army or militia is mandatory, but some people have the right to conscript their undead selves to the army. Certain cities have the opportunity to bind their soul to the skeleton, so they're not just some mindless beast. And so to kind of flesh this out, what I'm doing is basic head swaps with the Warhammer skull kit, as well as I got a Oathmark skeletons kit, and mostly I just used the heads, so that was probably a waste. But there were some screaming heads that worked really good for the Herald. He's the guy with the horn and the flag, and it was kind of a nice variation I could sprinkle through to other people. Alright, so I finally finished the footmen, and now I'm heading on to the horses. The horse kit is actually really fantastic. It was my favorite part to assemble. There were two horses that had English lettering on it. Games Workshop has so many different iconography for Sigmar, like the hammer, Mordheim, star. So the way I got rid of this was I backfilled it with green stuff, really stuffed it all in there, and then I scraped it off the top. It didn't require any sanding. I just put my finger in water and rubbed it across the top and made sure it was flush. And then while assembling these horse models, my wife's Lord of the Rings playlist was playing Rohan the entire time, so it really set the mood to make these.
These models came together pretty good. I do want to kind of mention that the scale for these models aren't that different from Frostgrave kit. You need to theme your army to a specific region or whatever. I think it's pretty easy to say that basically any kit from North Star is pretty compatible with this. I'm working with some existing base sizes that I have on hand and replace all this stuff. I only have 5 of these bases, so I'm only going to make 5 of the gunners. I don't know how many come in a set because the close-up pictures where they're alone, there's only 5 of them. So there are either 5 or 10 in a box. It's going to be kind of hard to know.
These Perry miniatures actually worked really great with these kits. They were maybe 1 or 2 millimeters shorter, but I did use the same heads from the original kit because it came with so many extras. The only difference was I had to chop off the neck, and I just used that poster tack to stick it to the table and then cut through it on either side, and then I cut it through the back, making sure that I didn't trim the chin off. That gave me a good angle for me to kind of lean the head into an aiming position, and it didn't look too odd. The heads were a little bigger than the ones in the kit it came with, but I think most of that had to do with the helmet, so I didn't think it looked too far off. And this last guy I assembled was a skeleton, and I thought it would be funny if he had one of the crossbows that were in the kit, just kind of like he's not willing to learn the new stuff. At this point, you might be realizing that I haven't pre-based any of my models. Mostly that was because I didn't think about it at all, but it did kind of benefit me because I put a texture paste on the base and it allowed me to blend in any of the plastic parts that connect the model to the base. That to me always makes it a lot easier, and if I don't have to cut off these little parts where the feet meet the base, it does save me a lot of time. So I'm going to start on the ogre. The first thing I wanted to do was the shoulder pads on this model aren't very good, and because I'm an idiot, I decided, yeah, I can do this with the scalpel. The surface of the plastic was really soft, so I felt like I could kind of shave things in pretty simply, but the deeper I would get into the plastic, the more dense it became, and that's where the problems came from. When things would get fuzzy, this plastic did go really well with a lighter, and it would kind of shrink everything back in, and then I could chop it up some more.
Alright, so quick safety thing. Don't do this. Scalpels, even when they're used in the hobby, are still made to cut flesh. I'm speaking to you as much as I'm speaking to me. Don't do this. I felt like I was being super safe. I was always cutting away from my fingers. I had the right tool. I have a Dremel that's cordless. I didn't have the bit. It was in a drawer. And I was like, you know what? I can do this. I'll just cut little sections. Just don't. Get the right tool. You're going to hurt yourself. I'm not going to show you the clip because I hate it when YouTube channels do that. But just trust me. Be safe. Don't do this. Or your daughter will rat you out to your wife and you'll get in trouble, like me. Alright, let's get back to the build.
Now we're going to get to the fun bit. So as far as detailing the ogre, to kind of tie it into the rest of the army, I cut out some more shields from the kit and I put them on the shoulders. I went in with the Dremel and kind of battered them up to kind of suggest that they're second hand and they're not like good enough for the infantry. So the ogre is taking them up for like that way they're still getting used or whatever. The crow's nest is something I 3D modeled in a program called Tinkercad. I have maybe it was like 6 months ago. I did a series of videos on how I show you or what tools I use. Mostly I use Tinkercad and Sketchfab, but I used Thingiverse models, the shapes that were inside of Tinkercad to create this. And if you want to download it for your own model, it'll be free on Patreon. Feel free to go there. The other things that I 3D modeled, one of the details that I saw on the reference photo was between the legs on the ogre. Don't ask me why I was looking there. I saw like a foot, it almost looked like a crossbow, like foot clamp. I don't know the word for that, but to me it suggested that there was a ladder behind it, and so I got an HO scale ladder, basically just inverted it so that the rungs of the ladder were sticking out, and I felt like that was more utilitarian. When I went with the Dremel on the shields, I also went up and down the Plastruct ladder, and that really just kind of suggested more of a wood texture. Unfortunately, I knocked 2 of the rungs off, but I just went in with some green stuff when I was putting in some straps to hold it and rigging. That's not the word, but that's the one that's coming to mind. Yeah, I also sculpted in some broken rungs, so it looked like maybe those were battle damaged or whatever. So yeah.
I'd like to just take a quick sec to talk about my Patreon. Not because I want to sell you on it, but because it's a really valuable resource for those who are into Mordheim, Age of Sigmar, and stuff like that. So I just came out with a Victorian greenhouse STL pack, and this STL pack is free. I think having free things to help the community is really a lifeline to those who are new to the hobby. And it kind of lowers the bar of entry. Maybe you don't have the funds, or you'd rather buy a pack of, or a box of City of Sigmar Marines. This could help you out. So this is free. This is my gift to you guys for helping me get to, we're at 1,200 subscribers. This channel has grown far more than I ever thought it would. And I really appreciate you guys. So I'd like to take a sec to thank my Patreon members, Leroy, Moonbad, Feder, Caracal, Old School FRP, and Burning Heart Custom Creations. Everything from this channel's birth to now is free on Patreon. There is 2 exceptions though. I do a battle report with my wife. We play it together, and then she makes a short story written based on the game. And it was really fun. So the written version is out right now. She's transitioning to a new job. So currently we're developing an audio version for people who don't like to read, like me. And that preview will come out on the channel whenever it's ready. Sorry that it's taking so long, but obviously life comes first. So the other thing that is an exception is the STL packs I'm developing. That will be a Patreon exclusive as I'm developing them. And then when they're ready for everyone, I'll release those for free. And there'll probably be a video to announce those. Hopefully those are good enough incentives for you to become a Patreon member. If that has convinced you, then it's only $2.
For the basing, all I did was I used foam core cobblestones, Citadel texture paste, and some fences that I 3D printed. I use those fences on everything, so I'm sure if you've seen a video of mine, you've seen those before. Something that surprised me though is that one pot of Citadel worked for the entire army. So that was something that surprised me. Then for the prime, I used a Lowe's purple for the shadows, and then I let that dry. And then I took a teal and I did the zenithal with that. And then after that, just to make sure that everything would be sealed and the spray paint wouldn't like detach while I was painting, I did a matte clear coat over everything, and this is how they turned out. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoy. Have a good one.